I've been filling sketchbooks with drawings for more than 25 years. And when people look at my sketchbooks, they're always saying to me, "Oh, you're so talented, though. I mean, it's been so easy for you." And today I want to show you my very first sketchbook. So you can judge how far I've come because I put in a lot of work over the years to get from there to here. And you still might think that my very first drawings are better than the ones that you can do now. You might still think that I've had some kind of a head start, was born with a silver pen in my mouth. But perhaps by seeing this journey that I've taken, it'll help you to gain more confidence in the work that you're doing today as you start out. And it'll also help you to imagine how you're going to feel when you can look back on your very first sketchbook and you can see how far you've come over the years. Before we go any further, I want to thank today's sponsor, NordVPN. And I'll tell you in a minute why I rely on NordVPN when I go out to draw in public places. So in June of 1997, I was desperate for some kind of a creative outlet, something to give my recently fractured life some meaning. And I've made a video about that whole time in my life. So anyway, I decided to take my first bookbinding class as a creative outlet. And I also started to do things like drawing various things around my house, my medicine cabinet, a shoe, a picture in a magazine, anything that struck my eye and seemed like doable for somebody like me who really didn't know how to draw. And the results were disappointing. And the lines were kind of anxious and crabbed, and they weren't at all what I had imagined in my mind that maybe I would be able to do. So I had these two different creative outlets, right? Drawing and bookbinding. And they came together when I bound some cheap copier paper into my very first sketchbook, Volume 1. It was going to be Volume 1 of more than 100, but I had no idea about that at the time. I didn't even know how to spell beginning. Anyway, I had this burning desire to do a lot of drawing, but I just didn't know really what to do drawings of. I had this vague idea of how to keep an illustrated journal, but there weren't really many examples around, so I was just kind of making it up as I went along, trying to things out, turning the pages and just doing stuff. So this first book is very much of an experiment. And the paper was really lousy. It was copier paper from my office. And I could only draw on one side of the page because it was always bleeding through. And the pen that I had handy was a Uniball roller pen that I had nicked from the supply closet at work. On the title page, I wrote a quote from Samuel Johnson, and I put in a little photograph of Albert Einstein with his cuffs rolled up. It felt kind of like an official beginning to the book. And it was a Tuesday, and the next week was the beginning of a mad love affair. I filled more than 30 pages with drawings of everything around me in that first week. All I could think about was drawing. I was totally hooked. This is the very first page that I filled. I was drawing in pencil, people in the New York Times. And I wrote little captions next to the pictures, but I was pretty careless with my writing, and it's almost illegible. I must have done this over breakfast. My second drawing is captioned, "My first lunchtime sketch trip. Brown bag, wandered all over the lower third of Central Park till I found a long row of deserted benches opposite this view. Drew, ate, drew." I think that I wandered so much because I was really afraid that somebody might see me drawing. Here I am, I'm trying to draw various people sitting around the park eating their lunches, and it was really hard. I was so anxious, and I noted that some people are so restless and they spin around to stare at others. And you can tell by my shaggy, shaky line that I just had no confidence in drawing in public. It was scary. Now, before we continue, I want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, NordVPN. When I first started drawing in public, I felt exposed, like people were watching over my shoulder, were judging every shaky line. And it turns out I wasn't wrong. Every time you go to a cafe to draw, or you go to a park that has free Wi-Fi, and then you decide you want to upload a photo of your new page to social media, you could be making yourself vulnerable to an attack. And I don't just mean trolls on Facebook who didn't like your drawing and say mean stuff. But when you hop onto a public Wi-Fi, at a cafe, at an airport, at a hotel, at a park, your data can be exposed. You probably wouldn't even know it. And that's because hackers can set up fake Wi-Fi networks, something that they call a man-in-the-middle attack. It looks totally legit, but it's secretly stealing your personal information, your passwords, your banking detail, your email. They can grab it all. That's why I use NordVPN. It encrypts your internet connection. So even if you accidentally connect to some shady network, your data stays safe. And it also blocks trackers and ads, and it keeps your browsing private. And right now, NordVPN is an exclusive deal for you. Go to nordvpn.com/sketchbookschool, and you'll get a huge discount on a 2-year plan. And it's risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Honestly, it's nerve-wracking enough trying to make art surrounded by strangers. I want to feel as confident as possible, so I rely on NordVPN when I go out. All right, let's get back to my very first sketchbook. So the next day, still madly in love with my sketchbook, I played hooky so I could draw in the park. And I filled 5 pages drawing trees and trying to capture the depths of multiple planes by using dark lines in the foreground and lighter lines in the background. The subject didn't have much significance to me, but I thought, well, this is what artists do, right? You make landscape scenes, you do things like that. So that's what I did. And I also did a series of drawings of dented trash cans, because that's the kind of thing that appeals to me. The next day, I tried drawing my son Jack in his high chair, and I was really frustrated. And I wrote, "Why can't I draw my own son? He moves too fast." And I also tried practicing a blind contour drawing of crumpled paper, which is a good exercise. You should try that too. And then on Sunday afternoon, I managed a carefully observed drawing of my dog Frank taking a nap. At the top of the page, there's a small note, and there's an arrow pointing across the margin that reads, "His mistress naps on the couch." But there's a page missing from that sketchbook. Clearly, I'd also tried to draw my wife, but it was such a disaster that, embarrassed, I sliced it out of the book. Chastened, I scaled back my ambitions and I drew a few heads of garlic. And then I took my first day off from a week of drawing. And this began my habit, a habit that still consumes me more than a quarter of a century later. Now, I bet you might still be thinking, yeah, you started out a lot more advanced than I am today. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep going, that you keep experimenting, that you keep trying new things. You draw everything, even if you don't know how to draw it. Because over time, your drawing is going to get more confident. It's going to get more interesting. It's going to get more satisfying, and you're going to be happy with the results. But that can only happen if you start to draw. Get some paper, get a pen, and just draw anything. And regardless of the outcome, keep going. Just go and draw anything. I promise you that in a short time from now, we'll both be looking back at what you've done and saying, remember when you started filling your very first sketchbook? And look at you today. Isn't that amazing? The more you draw, the more confident you'll feel. So get out there, start your first sketchbook today, and keep going. And don't forget to keep yourself and your online activities safe while you're out there sketching the world. Check out nordvpn.com/sketchbookschool, sketchbookschool with a K, for that special offer that we talked about. I hope you found this helpful. And if you did, sign up for my free essays. I'll send you great advice like this every week. And subscribe to this channel. I put out new videos every week. Next, watch this.